Hi crafters, Raquel here. I'm a crafter for Tonic Studios, and today is the March Madness release of my recipes for happiness. This is going to be a die and paper bundle. So I'm super excited to get this on hand so that I can show it to you. I'm going to go over the papers first, and then we can talk about the dies. As the name implies, this is going to be so that you can create a little recipe book. And I absolutely love making memory books or mini albums. So this is right up my alley, and I'm going to show you here the 18 sheets of luxury cardstock. This is 200 GSM in weight. You get 2 each of 9 double-sided designs, and they do contain the 28 tags and stamps that you can use with the tag and stamp die set. That's item 5523. So if you don't already have that, you're going to want to pick it up because every collection of papers that Tonic Studios releases has those little elements and they're super cute. So you may as well take advantage of them. So I'm going to open this up and we'll take a look at the papers. Okay, so I just referred to the tags and stamps, and this is what I was talking about. On the back of the front sheet, what you see here are little layers that will go along with the tags and stamp set. So these little pieces here, for instance, will cut out with the little die that looks like a postage stamp around the edges. So are the little rectangular ones. And so these will layer really nicely. And as you can see, there are some little sentiments. The colors are with the orange and blue, hints of pink, and all of the beautiful baked goods. For this page here, we have a horizontal perspective. It looks like a setting on a table, and it repeats itself. So there are this little grouping of a cake, couple of little pound cakes or powdered cakes there. There are 2 little cups, and then there is the little cup here holding the utensils, and the frosting is in pink with a little raspberry on top. Very pretty, and there are also little blueberries on one of the cakes. So you could create little mini scenes with these if you would like to, or you could cut out the repetitive strip. Very, very pretty. On the opposite side of that, you have this pattern here, which is the blue and pink, and it literally looks like a water-based blend, or when you take oxide inks and then blend them onto a background with a stencil. Super pretty pattern, one I had not ever seen before, so I think that's quite unique. Our next sheet is yet another horizontal pattern. This one, a bunch of little cupcakes. The background is white with little pink hearts here and there, and it looks like splatters of pink as well. And then it has all of the little utensils such as measuring spoons and the whisks. And then there's this little jar here that looks as if it were either little cupcake liners inside or maybe some sugar, but it's got the pink and white stripes. So very pretty. I'm loving the palette already. And here is the background with the pink on white and then all of those pretty little hearts. And I love that it looks as if it were watercolor. Our next sheet is this kind of cornflower blues, what I would call it, with the background, and then it has little subtle hints of white here and there, and it's got all of the little pots and pans and also the cutlery around, and then it has some little leaves here or little sprigs, and then there's tiny little pink roses as well. It's quite pretty and very subtle. The opposite side has a larger version of the pots and pans and all of the cutlery, the whisks, and yet again the same little flowers here and there. The background here is white with splatters of blue. Now we have these shaped images, and what I can tell you is that there is a corresponding die for these as well. So what's really neat about this is it says a recipe for memorable days, a recipe for the one I love, a recipe for best friends. There's family sentiments, good times, that sort of thing. So if you wanted to, you could definitely use these for card making, not just for the memory book, but there's obviously the little place settings on each one. So you could also use these for maybe a very special event in which you want to do some place settings and have these as little gifts. That would be a really wonderful idea. The background of this one has white with the blue splatters and also the blue little hearts. I love the colors on this. This background is really pretty with the blue and white, and there are those scattered little hearts. Only this time around, there are cakes on the cake stand and then cakes on plates and cake slices, and they're all topped off with those gorgeous pink roses. They look like a cabbage rose. I love the color combinations and the fact that you could use just one little section of this. You could cut it horizontally or vertically. It's still going to look really pretty. Here are the same cakes, but in a smaller scale. And then the background on this one is the pink hearts and splatters on white. Here are the table settings, and there are the ones that have a little more lavender in them, and then the ones that are a little more of the pinky peachy colors, and the vertical striping here with that same watercolor effect, almost like a tile background. And of course, these are all in vertical fashion. The background of that one is white with the orange hearts and the splatter. So it's a very light watercolor effect again. This sheet has a bunch of different cut aparts. They're all surrounded with items you would see in a kitchen or on a table. And there's the florals, of course, also some fruit here, which is really pretty. And they all have a different sentiment. I'll read the one in the center. It says, "A bubbling pot upon the stove, poured with warmth and shared with love." So different sentiments that have to do with, of course, cooking or food, but definitely with friendship or love related, that sort of thing. Very sweet. The opposite side of that has a bunch of different tiny little things like spoons, whisks, spatulas, and also rolling pins. I think this is quite endearing, actually. Here's another tablescape that's repeated. It has the pots and pans and the plates, and also the little jars with flowers. And there are some citrus fruit there also. So this is quite nice. It's almost kind of like a Tuscan scene, I would call it. And then it does have stripes here that are the pink, the blue, and the orange. Here is the background of that. And this one has the same tablescape, only now it's all one color per stripe, if you will. And of course you see the pink, blue, and orange repeated again. Here is what you would have as a little recipe prompt, if you will. So all of these say a recipe, and then of course you could write in here on each one of them what type of recipe you're referring to. But these are all little cut aparts as well, with the nice pretty soft colors around them with the flowers and that sort of thing, or the little cakes. Here is the same type of background with the little rolling pin, spatulas, and spoons, and the whisks, only the scale is a little bit larger than the one before. And then they repeat themselves, so you have plenty of paper here to create some really pretty backgrounds and add on to a recipe book. So what I'll do is that I'll now show you the dies. This is a 49-piece die set. You're going to be able to create 3 size pages. And as you can see on the outermost edge, there will be a stitching line, but it's a little bit of an irregular line, so it looks more homespun. And then there's a second matting layer here that corresponds to each size page. And this one also has some debossing, so that's really pretty. Then there are these pieces here. They are 2 different sizes, and they could be used as smaller pages if you would like to, because there is that little tab, or you could use them to create little interactive type pages in your book. There's this die here, and then this larger one, that's going to allow you to create little slits in your page. So for instance, if you created tags with these 2, they're going to correspond with the size slit that you can create with the horizontal dies here, which is really neat. So you can, again, add little interactive pages to your book. Over here is this piece that's also corresponding to the stitch line of the covers or pages of your book. So that lets you know you could create a little closure with that. And on the side here, what you see are these pieces that allow you to cut into the page sides that you would use these dies for. These little holes will correspond to those pieces there, so you could thread cord or ribbon through the pages if you want to create that style of book. It would be more like a notebook, if you will. And then these 2 pieces here are what you would use to create the layers to then go ahead and adhere onto your page sides so that it's a bit more sturdy, so that your pages don't break. Here's a little banner. You have 5 different sentiments. This one says for friends and family, for a happy marriage, for a happy family, for happiness, for good times. So you can dedicate the book for different types of seasons or occasions if you're gift giving, and that's really neat. There is a little pot, a chef's hat, a spoon, a rolling pin, the little heart. There's like a little Dutch oven here, and also a flower. This sentiment here with the shadow says my recipes, so you could use that in conjunction with the banner if you'd like to. There's a little spatula here. There's a fork, a knife, a whisk, a leaf, 2 more flowers, so you do have a total of 3. And then there's this square piece here, which I think corresponds with this one so that you can create a little latch to close your pages. And that's going to be interactive with the little types of cutlery that you have here. So that's going to be super cute. And I like that there are shadows to most of the pieces as well. So I'm going to cut some pieces and then share with you what I'll be making with this book. To create this recipe notebook, I've gone ahead and cut out the pages, and I've also cut out the spine using the die that coordinates with the set. This is the second largest page. I just placed this piece here on the side. That cut out all of the little apertures that you see there. Then there are 2 different dies available that will allow you to cut the little reinforcement pieces. This is time consuming, so I did it off camera, as you can tell. And the one thing I'll point out is that this layering piece and this one are actually 2 different lengths. So you use them as you wish to. As you can tell, I did skip a total of 4 little apertures on each page, but I did reinforce both sides, and that's why I'm specifying that it is time consuming, but you put a podcast on in the background as I do, or music, and you just cut and glue. You can get them all done. And again, this is just using this, and just to let you know, if you're new to this little piece is going to fit top to bottom on every page. So obviously, depending on the height of your page, you want to center this on here. And if you're doing the same size page, which is again the second largest, then the only thing that's not going to essentially be on the page are the top and bottom little flat portions there. But that doesn't actually cut into your paper anyway. So this will work for the 2 largest pages in your set. And then from there, the increments get smaller, of course. So then you can just keep centering it and you're fine. I'm going to decorate the front page using this beautiful paper from the set or the collection. I'm also complementing it with this pink cardstock. What I've done is I've also colored the perimeter of this with one of the Aquaflow pens. This is called Midas Touch, and it's an aqua shimmer pen from Nuvo. So it is water-based, and you can use it on any paper you like. All I did was run it over the edge because the paper actually gets debossed by the dye, and I thought that that was such a pretty detail. For the cover, I've cut out the little chef's hat. I just thought that was so, so cute. I did cut that out of white cardstock, as you can see, and that's also all of the papers from Tonic Studios. Then what I did is I created a little frame. This is from another set. And then with the collection, you can cut out a little rolling pin. I thought this was so adorable, so I did cut this out and color it using Copics so that it would look like a real rolling pin. And I also have the title, which comes with the shadow. And there's this little strip here. What I've done is that I've cut this out so that it will go on the front of the book. And what I'm going to be doing is attaching it with magnets. So you have to think a little bit ahead with that, but I'll share the process, of course. And then I've cut the shadow out twice. And I've also cut it out of pink card. The white paper is 300 GSM. I've cut the actual sentiment out, I think, 3 times and adhered all of those together because I like a sturdy die cut. And that's going to go behind the sentiment in gold. So whenever I do any kind of lettering or sentiments on my projects, I always try to back it up with multiples. And I just use my scrap papers, so that way I get a nice sturdy finish on my books, especially a memory book or notebook, because it's going to be front and center, and I think it's really important to have the die cuts be substantial. Of course, that's my personal opinion, but if you're new to this type of project, then that's a little tip that maybe you can take with you from this video. Don't forget also to subscribe if you're new to this channel, because I love sharing all of the makes, of course. This one being a special one from March Madness for Tonic Studios, but it's just a lot of fun. Okay, so I have this, and I'm going to also layer the sentiment, and this will all make sense in a moment. Okay, so here's my little pink shadow. This is Ballet Pink cardstock. I just thought it would look really pretty. Now I'm using Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, but there are adhesive pens available from Tonic Studios as well. So they are excellent for these small spaces also. But if you don't yet have this applicator, let me tell you, I use it every single time that I craft, and I've not gotten tired of it because it works perfectly. Just because you get to select the amount of pressure that you put on it. And now I can center this while this is drying, but to make sure this dries flat, I will be placing an acrylic block on top of it and setting that aside. Now I mentioned this strap that I want to use for my front page. And you can do a lot with this, believe it or not, but I've already placed the little magnet on the back. And I've also placed a little pencil mark on here. And I should have waited to place that magnet, but that's not going to hurt anything. What I'm going to do is place this here on a scoreboard and score it at 3 inches. And I've yet to determine how far I want to score it on the side, but this is going to wrap around the little notebook. So we'll revisit that score tool in a moment. But what I want to do first is go ahead and kind of plan out this front page. I'm going to layer the frame with this pink paper. That's going to be my main embellishment. And I want this to be a little bit topsy-turvy. And I also want these to be topsy-turvy on here. Next, what I'm going to do is plan out the front page. I'm actually going to be using this here, which is a second copy, if you will, of the sentiment to cover the magnet that's going to match my closing or my closure here. I'm going to adhere this or let those magnets stick together and then place my adhesive so that it tacks onto that paper. This is going to go right here. I'm going to adhere this element first just to make sure that it's positioned exactly where I want it. And of course you can use dimensional adhesive if you'd like. Now I have these two magnets together. I'm going to place the adhesive on the second one and then eyeballing this, which is going to be about 5/8 of an inch up from the bottom of the page. And here you see the adhesive, so that's where the magnet's going to go. Just like that. Now I'm going to cover this with the sentiment so that you don't see the magnet. And this strip will now match there. You can tell how quickly those magnets stick together. So what I'm going to do next is place the other sentiment on top of this, but I'm only going to adhere it to this portion here and get an idea of where the adhesive needs to go. And then place that right on top, matching that shadow. Here's where I'm going to take a baby wipe and clean off any excess adhesive that may have gotten on the mirror card. And then if it's too wet, you can just dry it off with a kitchen towel. And that usually does the trick to remove any fingerprints. For our next page, I'm going to use a decorative layer. And this is using the die that cuts that decoration all around the edge. I'm also using this die here that cuts that parallel line there. And those are actually cut lines that will allow you to make a little bit of a pocket in your page. And I'm going to cut through that paper. I'm going to do the same step again, a little bit farther down on the same page. I now have a page that looks like this, and here's where I can place any little tags. What I'm going to do is adhere this onto a blank page here, same size as all of the other ones, and then I'm also going to place adhesive above the top line there. And then try to center this as best as I can. Positioning the page now on a little scoring tablet such as this one, then I'm going to be able to score this. And if you'd like to, you can place the page here on the corner. It's up to you how you do this. But what's important is that you score the edge evenly. And I think that's a good line. I'm now going to fold this away from myself, and I'm going to be careful here because this is heavier 300 GSM card. So I don't want this paper to crack. Okay, I'm going to burnish that fold line really nicely. So I'm going to now pair these up. And then apply pressure along that edge. Trying to make sure it's nice and straight, of course. So now I'm going to open this and apply pressure here. I'm going to apply another layer here with the matching paper. In this collection, there's also this couple of dies here, and they create a closure. I've already cut out one portion that I'll be using, and the other one I'm going to use on this page. Now let's pretend I didn't already adhere this onto the cover. What I'm going to do is just place this here. I'm going to try to center it a little bit. It won't truly matter. What matters is how far away from the edge I place that die, because it's going to coincide with this one. So if you'd like to, you can try to figure out the distance from the edge of your page with one die, and then that's where you want to place your little aperture, because that's all this is going to cut. So I'm going to tack this down, and it's just going to create a fun page. Once you've cut through your page, and mine shifted a tiny bit, so it's not going to be perfectly straight, but that happened because of the pressure of the machine. I'm not going to worry about it. Now what I'm going to do is open this and decorate this page with the layers that I intended on using. So first the pink layer is what I'm going to be using throughout. Then the decorative layer that I've cut out of the same paper. It's got the miniature little elements there. They're so cute. I'm now going to close this, and I'm going to try to center this, but I did cut it with my scissors, so it's not 100% perfect there. But this has some little score lines, and what you're going to do is make sure you burnish them. So there's two that are closer to the central part of this die cut that are mountain folds. Then there's two more score lines. Those are going to be valley folds. So just make sure you do burnish this really nicely. So this is going to create a little bit of a lift there. That's going to show through this little aperture, just like so. And what you want to make sure you do now is place adhesive on the two half moon parts there to adhere onto the second page. If you would like to, you can use low tack tape. Place your little piece of paper there, and then hold on to it with that. And then close it very gently. You get your little whimsical. I actually kind of like it a little bit better now because of the way that this page is going to lay out anyway. But once you apply pressure here, you have that. I don't know why it reminds me of a little band-aid, but that's going to close like this. And here you can close it with your little decorative element, which I think it looks really cute now that it's topsy-turvy, because this is where the little tags are going to go on this page. So I'm just going to decorate mine with little elements from the collection, such as this little stamp here. This is another little tag. And you can cut these out using the tags and stamps set. And if you want to further decorate your page with other little pieces, of course you can do that. I think it looks adorable. So I'm going to put the little spoon here, just on that end. And the little fork. I've used pearlescent paper and mirror cardstock just to make it fun. And then I did use a pearlescent Nouveau drop on the little whisk to make it look like it has frosting on it. So to open my page, I just have to remove this. And I now have my second page here. If you have a little aperture for your lock and you don't like the way that it looks like this, unfinished, just go ahead and cut out a matting layer. And then use your low tack tape to hold it down. Exactly where you would adhere it. Close your page and trace that portion there. Just mark it nicely with a pencil. Okay, now you have the location of where you want to place your die on here. And of course, you're not going to be able to see this on the other side, so your cut is still going to be from the back of the paper, but at least it'll match up. So now run this through your die cutting machine. Here's what your page is going to look like. You can remove the die now. And this will match on the back. You can adhere this down. Now what you can do is take one of the dies from the tags and stamp set, for instance, and just cut out one of those. Once you've cut that out, you can then take the same die that you used here and cut into the center of it. And now you can use this little frame to finish the edge on your page here. And it'll look really cute, almost like a little light switch cover. So now you can just match that up. And this finishes your page. It'll look really cute. Just like that. For this next page, I've cut out this piece. I'm going to place the layer on top. I'm going to then cut into it with the same little lock die. Of course, I'm going to adhere these first. I'm going to take the little aperture die, place it in the center, and this time I'm going to try to center this so that it doesn't cut topsy-turvy. So I'm going to place it on my die cutting machine. Here, I'm using a smaller one. So I've got my little aperture. And depending on your plate, it might leave marks on your paper. If that bothers you, just cover it with a piece of scrap paper that's nice and clean so that you don't get any of that texture. I'm going to take a rubber eraser and just clean off anything that got left behind. Using the matching die, I once again have cut this little portion that folds. And I'm going to make sure that I burnish this nicely. If you want to, reserve the piece of paper that falls out of that center, because you can cut it down and make it match the center of this portion. So that's what I'm going to do. And then to create your interactive page here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and fold this line here. And this is going to close, but this portion is actually going to adhere so that it attaches to the base page. Adhere the matting layers. To the top page here. It's got those pretty little cupcakes. So that's the top page. I'm going to make sure that I burnish this. So I'm going to match it all the way around first. And then tuck that tab in and press. Now I can open this page here. Now on this matting layer, I will adhere this portion. I'm going to open this first so that I know where to position this. So I'm going to adhere this tab first. I'm going to place it very close to the edge here. Burnish that and apply the matting layer. I can now close my page. This is going to fold over. And once again, you can apply some low-tack adhesive to your paper to hold it in place here. So it makes it easier. Apply your adhesive on the half moon tabs on the sides. You can gently close this page, press onto that paper, and just accommodate that while the adhesive is still wet. Now once you close this, you can place your matching little layer on the center. Gotta make sure it's facing the correct way, of course. There we go. And then use any number of the little utensils to close your page if you would like to. And of course that makes it very playful. Then you take these out to open your page like so. And you can continue covering these if you would like to, or leave them blank so that you have a place to write. For this next page, I'm starting off with the matting layer. I'll be using 2 magnets, and I've cut out 2 pieces that look like this. And what I'll do is that I'm actually going to have these overlap. So I'm going to place this so that it's centered onto that matting layer, according to how I want this to look on my page. And using a pencil, I am going to mark this paper right where I know that this pink matting layer ends. I'm going to do the opposite side with the second one as well. I'm going to use my scoring tool and score along those tick marks. I might place it this way so I get a nice straight line. There we go. I'm going to fold and burnish both of these. And I'm going to adhere them onto the back of the matting layer. Here's where I'm going to also center one of the magnets. I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to be decorating the front here with this piece, but I'm first going to match up the second magnet and then place the matting layer on top to cover it. And this entire piece will go onto the page. If you wish to, you can also decorate this portion. Now this will close in this direction and in that direction. And there you have a page. You can also decorate these edges. So if you happen to have a die that will cut out any strips, you can definitely cover that up. For this next page, I'm going to take a 2.5 inch tall piece of cardstock and it's 1 inch wide. I'm going to score that in half. I'm going to fold that and burnish it as well. Now that I have this, I'm actually going to be using it as the spine for this little booklet here. So you cut as many as you like. In this case, I have a total of 4. So I do have matting layers for this as well. And of course you use a matching die for that. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be using this as the spine, but first I'm going to cut it using the same die that I use to cut the little apertures onto those pages. So I've marked it with a Sharpie so that I can center it onto my paper, and then I'll just cut it down as needed. I'm going to position it right on top of this little strip with the folded edge facing the left. I now have something that looks like this. I'm now going to wrap this around this little piece, and I'm only going to adhere the front and back, and then I'm going to use some ribbon to tie it all together. And I like to measure about 3 times the height of the page. And place this inside, matching up the little apertures. And of course you can cut this down as needed. And place this one here. And then simply place the other ones right on top and then fold this over. And if they're not 100% lined up, don't worry too much. So long as you can fit the twine in there. I'm going to place little dots of adhesive here and on the ends, of course. Now I'm going to fold this over and match up those apertures. I'm going to close this now and cut away the excess on either end. For this next step, you can use a tapestry needle if you would like to. They have a larger eye, And if you like, if you don't have one, you can definitely use a piece of jewelry wire that's sturdy. This is 20 gauge and this works perfectly. I just fold it in half to create a little loop. I place my twine in here as if I'm threading a needle, and then use this to feed my twine through the little apertures, and then pull that through. And this way you can thread this in any way that you desire. Now what I'm going to do is bring it back to the top after I have this really nicely adjusted. And then just tie a square knot here. So now I have this really cute little binding on this little portion, and I'm going to go ahead and cover this with the matching papers here. And don't forget, you can leave some spaces blank if you'd like to. You don't have to cover every single surface. That way, if you want to take and insert a little photo in here, you can, or write down measurements or anything like that. And these should be able to fold nicely as well, with plenty of room there. Now for this portion here, what I would like to do is create a little pocket. To create a pocket, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut this diagonally, and I'm going to allow myself about, I would say, at least ½ inch of an edge on this side so that it anchors nicely on the page. And this you can eyeball. So I'm happy with that. Just cutting that matting layer like so. This is going to go on this matting layer. And what I'm first going to do is just anchor down or adhere that top half on its own directly onto that matting layer. And for this bottom half, this is where the pocket will be created. I'm going to place it on here along the bottom and along the side only. I'm going to remove this backing now. And I can apply this right on the bottom. So I'm going to actually place it right here, match it up to the previous edge there. And this will make it cohesive. I'm going to take a piece of denim blue cardstock and I'm going to use that spine die one more time. Just going to anchor that down. I'll be cutting this down, but I'm just going to run that through my die cutting machine. I'm now going to trim this using my guillotine. Before I cut this down further, I'm actually going to thread some more cord through this. And that way it makes it easier. I now have something that looks like this. And what I'm going to do is actually use double-sided tape to help me adhere this. So I'm going to use a Craft Perfect double-sided tissue tape, and I'm going to place this on the back. This is going to help anchor this down. Now taking the liner off, I'm going to apply some liquid adhesive here. And I'm going to adhere this onto a gold piece of card as just some backing here. I'm now going to adhere this onto my page. So I'm going to apply adhesive here. Position this so that there's just a little bit left on each side, but of course it's below the little pocket line there. Using sharp scissors, just like that. Matching the matting layer behind it. To be a little bit careful there, but now you can reinforce the little ends with a little drop of Nuvo Deluxe adhesive, and you can just render that with your finger there to make sure that that doesn't come apart. Should be fine. You can do that on both ends. If you get any little drops of adhesive, you can use a rubber eraser. And now this little booklet can fit right into that little pocket, and this can go right onto a page, which I have right here. I'm going to take this out so that I can adhere this. Apply a good amount of pressure. Before I do anything else, I actually want to put my pages in order. So I showed you how to do the cover and this little interactive page here. I've since put little eyelets onto the little tags there. And I believe I shared with you how to make one of these pages. So here's the other one. I did complete that with some strips of paper in denim blue. I thought it matched this collection really nicely. And now what I'm going to do is place my pages together. So you decide the order. I think I'm going to keep it like this. I'll be taking a spiral wire from Cinch, and these come in 30 packs as this one here, in all of the colors you see here. I'm actually going to take a transparent one, and I'm also going to use the Cinch needle nose wire clippers. It's a mouthful for me. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to bind this before I close it. I'm going to start at the top aperture there on the back, and then I'm going to start feeding each one of the pages right onto that wire as I coil it. Okay, so then you just keep feeding the next one. And I can see from the side whether or not each page has made it onto that wire, but because it's got a really nice tight coil, it's actually very easy to do it. And if you miss one, of course, you can always go back and fix that. But this is simply going to go all the way down to the bottom. So I'm going to continue coiling this until I get all of those little apertures coiled right onto that little wire. Once you have coiled this all the way up and down, I'm going to show you how you can just easily snip off the excess. And of course, I'm going to be closing this with the magnet as well. But I have this all the way up here, and here are the little snips. The solid portion here at the bottom is what you can use to actually cut the wire. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just feeding this all the way through. Like so. So it's very easy. There's not any resistance there in case you're worried about your hands. I always leave it a little bit longer than I need just so that I can make any necessary adjustments. And now what I'm going to do is finish this cover. What I've done is I've cut out the For Happiness sentiment because there are several available, and it is going to say my recipes for happiness, even though the sentiment's up there. I'm okay with that. Then there's a little die set that looks like this. It has the little, I would say, cooking pot, if you will. Of course, you could also use that as a big coffee cup. I thought that would be really cute. Then there's also a little heart. So as you can tell, what I've done is use the heart and cut it into that little pot. So that way I get the blue and the pink. I'm doing that quite on purpose. And I'm going to now layer this together for the front. And then we'll close this off. I just wanted to make sure I had all of my little embellishments on first. So this is going to be facing this way with the little hearts together like that. I thought this would be great for instance, a wedding gift. And that way maybe a couple is being handed down recipes from mother-in-law to daughter-in-law or mother to daughter. That would be so sweet. So I'm going to place that there. And then this one on the opposite corner. And I did that topsy-turvy so that I could get that bit of blue showing there. Now that I'm happy with that, I'm now going to gauge the distance that I'll need for this portion here. That's why I left it to the end. So because I want to leave myself even more space, that I'm simply going to take a ruler and measure this portion with a loose fit. And that's going to give me about 1.5 inches. And from that previous fold, I'm going to measure out 1.5 inches. And that's going to put me at, here's my fold already. I'm going to measure out 1.5 inches. And I'm going to score there as well. I'm going to fold that back now, making sure it's really nice and straight there. I'm going to once again match up that magnet to my sentiment there. And I'm going to adhere the last page to that portion there. And I'll be able to see from the side here whether or not that looks good. It looks, and then to secure that, I'm also going to cover it with a matting layer on the back. Now this should close nicely, and if you want to, you can always cut the strip one more time and adhere it to the back of this one. One more way you can use your dies is that if you want to create, for instance, a little corner pocket, you can just take the triangular portion you intend to use and cut it using the same page die. So that way you get the stitching on the edges. So I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine just to get that look on that piece. You'll end up with a piece that looks like this. And as you can tell, I've got my little edge there. And now what I'll do is place this on this little corner to create my little pocket. I'm also going to decorate it. So I went ahead and looked through my dies and I found the Scribbles and Texture die set. This was previously released by Tonic Studios. It's got a lot of fun little dies, including this one here, which reminded me of little bubbles. So I thought that could look like you're cooking on a hot stove. So naturally, I'm going to be putting this little die cut with it. And then I'm just going to pair it with some little hearts just to make it look super cute. So I'm going to adhere this first, and for this I don't need a lot of adhesive, but I'm going to just strategically place this behind this die cut. And if you're comfortable with it, you can place some on the back of your hand, spread it out a little bit, and then just tap the paper on. This will get more adhesive on that. Just be sure to check for allergies if you do that. Press that on here. So I'm going to just place this right on top. And then place the little hearts on here as well. Like the look of those placed together. On here, I'm only going to place adhesive on the two flat edges there that will face the bottom and side of the page. It's very little amount there to create a pocket. And now I can place this on that bottom edge of my page to create a little tuck spot for another recipe. Okay, I'm going to give you a walkthrough of my finished project here, and I'm also going to let you know the other items that I used in this because I like to combine old and new sets. That is one of the things that I try to focus on this channel. So what I've done is I've taken the My Memory Decks, my memory book collection. It looks like this on the packaging, and there's the name. So what I did was that I used the frames from that collection that you see here, just that one and actually the rectangular layer that goes with it. But this is a really cute set that will match really nicely with this collection because it has seasonal little elements that you could add to your pages if you like to create recipes that are for a particular season. And I just thought that was really darling, especially the scale. And then I also used the scribbles and textures for the little bubbles that I'll share with you. And the front looks like this. I added 3 more little flowers. That is also part of this collection. And I did use some little glitter Nouveau drops on those. And I typically make those all in one bunch. I let them dry overnight and then I use them in my projects. So that's one quick way that you can add all of your elements at once. When you open this, it has the page here that I shared with you how to create. And I also showed you how to cover this portion. I've added some twine to these little pieces because I found that they needed a little bit extra weight so that they don't fall off the page. Here I tied 2 of them together, as you can tell, and on some I use mirror card. I've created the little frames because I'm thinking that these will be the perfect size for you to add multiples on pages if you want to have a continuation of a recipe and just use multiples of the same style of little card. This again feeds through here, and I added little flowers throughout. On here, what I did is that I did cover the page with the same die cut that I've used on all of the pages, which is the one that is compatible with this page size. And then using that same die, I just cut another piece out of the blue cardstock, only I cut it down to about 2.5 inches, I believe it was, or 2 1/4, it might be 2 inches. Then I did use the stamp and die set for the little images that are available in the paper collection. I had some little leftover pieces in a bowl where I keep my little pieces of cardstock that just fall out of others, and I decided to go ahead and use those. I don't know where they came from, but you may see something similar to that later this week. Then to create some little ephemera, here is where I use actually the scribbles and textures. This die here reminded me of frosting, and so I thought it would look really, really cute with the little hat and the rolling pin as if it were frosting on a cake. And I created the backgrounds just using the paper collection. And then this is ivory cardstock. All of the papers are from Tonic Studios, of course. Then here, I showed you this page already, I believe, but I did close it with a metal clip. I do like to collect little elements like that for memory books or recipe books. Here I have two more, so these can go here. They can have something written just on the back, a little photo on here if you like. So these will fit nicely here. And that page can also close with that paper clip, just very carefully there. Can hold that together and has a little heart. I thought that was cute. So here on this page, I have the little spoon and the knife as little stoppers here, if you will, or little tuck-ins, so that I can fit two more frames. And of course you fit them as you like. And this page I did finish on the sides. It does open up like so. I did leave some white space for writing, and it does close with a magnet. Then here is where I use that other die set for the bubbles behind the pot. So again, from the scribbles and textures, that's where I use that die behind the pot to resemble the bubbles. I use from this collection, however, the little hearts, that pot, and then I did add a little strip here of mirror card. This is Bejeweled Blue. It's one of my favorites. So it looks like this, and I love using little strips of it here and there. So you can tell that you get a little bit of that shine there, and my camera might not pick it up because of the lighting, but it's adorable. And I did also finish this portion here with it. So it's very reflective and very, very pretty. And with these pastel colors on this paper, I thought it looked adorable. And then of course here I did that diagonal pocket, the little notebook that you can create very easily just by grouping those together. And then the magnetic closure on the front completes this book. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Don't forget that I will have affiliate links on all of my videos. So March Madness is known for having super fun collections from Tonic Studios. You don't want to miss out on them, especially because they come as a bundle at a special price. So please do take advantage of that so that you don't miss out if you like this type of crafting. And as I always say, I thank you for spending some time with me. I hope that you can be inspired and be blessed.